Good morning, YouTube. This is HeKnowsHisSport, bringing you that heat and that fire. Today's topic is Donald Sterling, once a racist, always a racist. The reality is, this is not surprising. Not more so to me. I don't know about the masses out there, but this is not a surprising issue. This is a lingering issue that's been going on with the racist predator, Donald Sterling. He's had these previous issues with a guy by the name of Elgin Baylor. You know, this is a player that might be before a lot of people's time, but what's puzzling about that whole Elgin Baylor situation is not the fact that Elgin Baylor previously talked about how Donald Sterling ran his organization as a plantation field. It's the reality that he stayed with that organization for 22 years. If you had a problem with this man, why did you stay that long with him? Why did you allow yourself to go through all that scrutiny, all of that racial injustice for 22 years? The reality is, and this is the ugly truth of a lot of people that look like me, a lot of people that have the same skin color as me, they will sell out for a buck. The reason why Elgin Baylor stayed those 22 years, and no one wants to face that truth, is because he still wanted to collect a paycheck. To him, collecting a paycheck was more important than him being degraded. It was more important than him constantly having to know that he was inferior to an NBA owner such as this. I waited until all the media outlets, I waited until everyone said what they had to say on Monday because I was collecting the data to see what they were going to say. And the reality is, Elgin Baylor is not only the only hypocrite here. The media is they've formed hypocrisy. The media, you know, all of a sudden, especially the sports ones, such as ESPN, such as Fox Sports, you know, Sun Sports, all of the big sporting networks, they want to sit here and they want to act like, let's just brush this under the rug and let's talk about it when the topic is hot. The reality is, the reason why they're only talking about Donald Sterling right now is because he's been put out there by a girlfriend of his. And because he's been put out there for allegedly saying the things that he said, forget allegedly, let's just be honest, that was that man's voice. Because of the fact that he said what he said, now everyone wants to jump on the story and say, oh yeah, this guy's a racist. No, he's been a racist since the beginning. No one paid Baron Davis any mind. Baron Davis was an ex-basketball player who no longer plays in the NBA. He does commentary from time to time. But Donald Sterling treated him like a $2 slave. You know, he's gone on rants plenty of times on Twitter. He's gone on rants on the news. He's talked about it, but because he wasn't a big name superstar, no one paid him no mind. He played with the Blake Griffins of the world. He played with the Chris Pauls of the world. What trips me out is these guys, you know, knew previously that this man was racist. Baron Davis, I'm pretty sure, put Blake Griffin on game. I'm pretty sure he told him about how Donald Sterling was. But the reality is, in our country, we hate to face this ugly truth, you know, as black folks. But a lot of black folks, when they're being thrown money their way, they turn the other cheek. All of that racist stuff, it goes out the door. This goes back to master and slave relationships, back when slavery was, you know, a public issue, back when it was publicly known that, you know, black folks were slaves, black folks were being lynched, black folks were being treated and considered as dogs that they were back in the days. The reality is, you know, these players are just like a lot of these other slaves back in the day. They would sell themselves out just so that they can get favor from the master. In this case, Blake Griffin wanted favor from Donald Sterling. CP3 wanted favor from Donald Sterling. You cannot tell me that you've been on the team that long, you've had the history of knowing what a Elgin Baylor went through. You had a history of knowing what a teammate such as Blake Griffin had in Baron Davis, knowing what he went through with Donald Sterling. And you turn over the other cheek, and you sit here and you sign a long-term contract with this owner. Now all of a sudden you want to do some hypocrisy protest where you take off your jersey, you take off the Clippers uniform, and now you want to make it seem like it's upside down and you're not showing it. That's nonsense. That's rubbish. You cannot tell me that you did not know that this man was racist. Or was it because you were being thrown so many millions of dollars that you chose not to accept that fact? And this is the reality of what we're dealing with. People like the Michael Jordans of the world, people like the Kobe Bryants of the world, people like the LeBron James of the world. These people are only coming out now because they want to save face. It's the quote unquote right black thing to do, to come out and say, oh, we're against this, only because now it's affecting the bottom line. Where were these guys when this guy, this racial predator such as Donald Sterling, was still in the NBA lurking around? No one said anything at that time. You know why? Because it wasn't a hot issue. It wasn't a hot topic. Now today, the NBA commissioner is going to sit there and have a press conference at 2 p.m. today. All he's going to do is talk rhetoric. If anybody thinks he's going to do anything meaningful and impact, especially for the black community, you are blind, you are allergic to the truth, and you just need to go sit down somewhere. Because the reality is, the NBA commissioner is in a very precarious situation. He cannot sit there and terminate the ownership of a man who is his boss. Yes, I said it. Donald Sterling is Adam Silver's boss. You have to understand the compromising situation that he is in right now. If anyone thinks that this man's ownership is going to be terminated, they got some loose screws up there. That's not going to happen. What the NBA is going to do, if you're putting the responsibility on them, they're going to just slap this man on the wrist. I mean, if you look at some of the bylaws, all they can do is fine the man $1 million. And all they can do is just say that he cannot show up to games. At the end of the day, he's still a billionaire. What is $1 million to a billionaire? He said what he said. He is not the only owner in the NBA that thinks that way. And he is not the only owner in sports that thinks that way. And you would have to have been a blind person to think that, oh, skin doesn't matter if you arrive to a certain level. That's nonsense. That's rubbish. That's crap. Here's how you know that the NBA commissioner is only going to levy a slap on the wrist. Look at Mark Cuban. Back in 2009, Mark Cuban was quoted saying things like, I like Donald. He plays by his own rules. Are you kidding me? This is the same guy who Mark Cuban, I'm pretty sure, knew had plenty of racial comments that he made back in the past. Investigations that he had with the Department of Justice. Are you kidding me? You're going to sit here and say something like that? The same Mark Cuban that came out yesterday, and the same Mark Cuban that said, again, there's no excuse for his positions. There's no excuse for what he said. There's no excuse for anybody to support racism. There's no place for it in our league. But there's a very, very slippery slope. But regardless of your background, regardless of the history they have, if we're taking something somebody said in their home and we're trying to turn it into something that leads you to being forced to dive to poverty in any way, shape, form, that's not the United States of America. I don't want to be any part of that. Cuban comments, you know what it shows us? It shows us how much the NBA commissioner, Adam Silver, like I said before, is in a precarious situation. It shows us that he is not going to be one of those guys that are going to sit with the NBA governor of boards, which is the 23 NBA owners, and is going to say, hey, we're going to terminate your ownership. That's not going to happen. What you're going to get is a slap on the wrist. When you hear Mark Cuban make comments like this, you have to understand why he's doing that. He's not doing it because of Sterling, being the racial predator that he is. He's not doing it because Sterling kind of put out the good old boy out there. He's doing it because of the fact that he's trying to protect his own interests. Do you understand the level of vitriol that would cause for NBA owners to come out and say that we're going to terminate the services of our own? Do you understand what type of future precedents that puts on NBA owners? That says that now, from here on out, if the NBA owner says anything that affects the bottom line, we have the power to terminate their ownership. NBA owners are not going to stand for that. The reality is they're not going to do it because they know ultimately it can affect them, and now they have to watch what they have to say. See, the NBA owners want to be able to do these things to the players. Would you imagine if a black player came out and said something racial? Would you imagine? I don't care if it was a superstar, I don't care if it was a regular player. If this was a player that did this, not only would he have been suspended indefinitely, they would have levied him with the biggest fine. They probably would have found a way to get him out of his contract, cut him from the team, and then they would pretty much put him out there as a pariah. Yes, Donald Sterling is labeled a pariah, but the reality is he's not going to be affected. His bottom line is not going to be affected. And with his extensive background as a lawyer and the experience that he has garnered from that, this man is going to fight. You know, I mean, he's already got public relations from the LA Clippers. He has a president coming out saying, oh, this is not Donald Sterling. This is not consistent with what he said. I mean, come on. The man is already trying to do damage control. I mean, you can't do damage control in a situation like this. And there is going to be uproar. But you know what the NBA is going to do? You know what the other owners are going to do? They're going to treat this situation just like the Trayvon Martin situation. They know people are going to protest. They know people are going to have an uproar. But they're just going to buy out time. Because that's what they do in those type of situations. They know the protest is not going to last forever. They know that people are not going to sit here and take time out of their work, take time out of taking care of their families, so that they can keep pounding on a topic like this. They know eventually, no matter how heated a topic is, it's going to die down. And that's what's going to happen. That is the reality. And people need to wake up and face that truth. This is what it's going to be. They're going to wait for the situation to die down, and they're going to buy out time. These hypocrites such as Charles Barkley, these hypocrites such as Magic Johnson, these hypocrites such as Michael Jordan, hypocrites such as LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, all of these guys, they're only coming out and they're only trying to say the right things, the politically correct things, because at the end of the day, they're trying to protect their own bottom line. They knew that this man was dirty. They knew that this man was a racial predator. They knew that this man had a foul mouth. Everyone knew it. The reality is no one paid attention to it until it hit public light. And this is one of the dirty secrets of the NBA. I've touched on many other dirty secrets of the NBA, but the reality is this is the hot one. The NBA is the only sport that does not have a sanctioning body. I've said this before. The NBA is like a modern day, one of the very few legalized monopoly out there. They do what they want. They walk by their own heartbeat. No one holds them accountable. They do as they please. And for anyone to think that an organization that has that level of power to take one of their bosses and to kick them to the wayside, that's not going to happen. But what's disturbing to me is not even all of that. It's something that's non-basketball related. It's the NAACP. This is supposed to be an organization that's supposed to fight against racial injustice. This is supposed to be an organization that fights against prejudice, bias of any form, shape, or fashion to any color or creed. And the reality is, they bought out. They sold their souls for a buck. That's what happened. This is why you see everyone in the NAACP, even the Al Sharptons of the world, are caught with their tongue tied. They don't even know what to say. They don't even know how to handle the situation. They don't even know how to deal with it. And they're being poked fun at, because the reality is, what you're learning from the NAACP is they can be bought. Now they want to say it's a local chapter. Get out of here. You mean to tell me the chapters above the local chapter didn't know? And then they want to talk about the undisclosed amount. We don't even know how much money this man threw at the NAACP. And you mean to tell me that the national level didn't know about it? You mean to tell me that they had no part in knowing how much money that this man donated to that local chapter? Come on. People need to wake up. Black people in this country are blind. I don't understand that. They think that because you have some kind of money, you have some kind of esteem, you have arrived. The reality is you have not arrived to these people. Donald Sterling is not the only one that thinks this way. He is just one of the very few that's bold and vulgar enough to say these things in public. But the reality is a lot of these sports owners think this way of these players. Now that Donald Sterling has said what he said, they're going to be even more reserved. They're probably going to even watch themselves in table talk. They might talk to themselves when they say these things. But you cannot sit here and think because you are a multi-million-dollar athlete that you are on the same level playing field with a billion-dollar owner. Listen to the words. Multi-million-dollar athlete, billion-dollar owner. That right there, those amounts right there within itself tells you that there's a separation. So what do you think? It's not just going to be a separation in money. It's going to be a separation in status, a separation in power, a separation in social life, and a separation in how they think, view, and see things. All of this, we're going to take a stand. All of this, we're going to boycott. These are things that should have happened years ago. These are things that should have happened nearly 20 plus years ago when people found out that this man was a racist. And this is the problem that I have with these sports media people in the sports media outlet world. They don't jump on a story until it's hot. You know, now all of a sudden they want to vilify this man when it's public knowledge that this man was always like this. Like I said, and I will say before, nothing much is going to happen to Donald Sterling. He's going to go back to being who he is. He's going to go back to living comfortable and be a billionaire that he is. He's going to find a way through litigation to fight this. Now you got an NAACP that has, I'm glad this happened to them, to be honest with you, because I felt that they had a bad reputation to start with. I didn't believe in all of the things that they were talking about. And to a certain degree, I believed for a long time that a lot of black folks, you know, could be sold out for bucks. You know, this goes back to slavery days. So it's good that something like this happened to them, because you need people to see what people's true colors are when things like this happen. The Michael Jordans of the world, all of these superstars of the world, they were going to sit here and continue to be part of the good old boy nation. They were going to sit here and be part of the good old boy network. The reality is, now that this issue is dropped, they don't want nothing to do with it, because at the end of the day, it's affecting their pockets. So what are we dealing with here? We're dealing with a bunch of hypocrisy here. This is what we're dealing with. And this is the reality of what sports world has become. This is the reality of how these owners view these players. And if anyone, you know, doesn't want to pay attention to these things, that's on you. If anyone doesn't want to see the realities that are going on behind the closed doors, that's on you. This is one of the dirty secrets of the NBA. Many more is going to come out. But the reality is, let's see how long this lasts. I don't think this is going to last long. Because, like I said before, I think that this guy is going to find a way to fight it. I think that the commissioner is going to put a slap on the wrist, because, once again, he's in a situation where his hands are tied. He has to come out there and, quote-unquote, give, you know, the black community somewhat of something that looks like a form of punishment, when you really diagnose the situation, there is no punishment. This is what's going to come of that press conference at 2 p.m. When you got fellow owners like a Mark Cuban saying what he says about a Donald Sterling, he is not the only one that feels that way. These owners are not going to turn against Donald Sterling. What they're going to do is if he's going to sell that team, they're going to allow him to do it on his own free will. They're going to allow public opinion. They're going to allow the dollars that he loses from advertisement in his sector to determine that fate. But to leave it to them, are you kidding me? Are you crazy? That's not going to happen. This is HeKnowsHisSport. Checking out.